I didn't plan to record this. I actually tried not to. I opened a note, typed 2 lines, erased them, opened it again, typed a paragraph, erased that too. Because the truth is, when you've spent your whole life being the one who handles it, the moment you speak like a human being, it feels dangerous. Not because it's wrong, because it's real, and real things can be taken from you. Real things can be twisted. Real things can turn into headlines. So I'm going to do this the safest way I know. I'm going to pretend this is a letter I'll never send. A letter that stays between me and you. Dear you, I don't know what time it is where you are, but I can guess the feeling because there's a certain kind of silence that only shows up when the world finally stops asking things from you. The dishes are done or they're not. The TV is off or it's just playing to fill the room. Your phone is face down because you don't have the energy for another notification pretending it's urgent. And there you are, still awake. Not because you're bored, because your mind won't stop even when your body is begging for rest. If you're watching this right now, I'm going to take a gamble and say something bold. You're not here for drama. You're not here to be entertained by somebody's chaos. You're here because you want something simple and rare. You want to feel safe. Not safe like locked doors and passwords. Safe like you can finally exhale. Safe like you don't have to explain yourself to be treated gently. Safe like your heart doesn't feel like it's always bracing for impact. And I know how that sounds coming from someone the world assumes is invincible. But let me tell you something the cameras don't show. You can live in a house full of light and still feel cold. You can have rooms so bright they look like daytime at midnight and still feel like you're sitting alone in the dark. Not because there aren't people around, because nobody is with you. There's a difference. People can be near you and still not touch your life. People can praise you and still not see you. People can want a piece of you without wanting the quiet, complicated person underneath. And I'm tired. Not the kind of tired sleep fixes. The kind of tired you get when you've been carrying strength like armor for so long, you forget what your own skin feels like. So, here's what I've been afraid to say out loud. I think it's time I stop pretending I don't want a partner. And yes, I'm going to use the word people love to make into a spectacle. A wife, but not the way the internet hears it. Not a wife like a trophy. Not a wife like a brand accessory. I mean a wife like home. A woman who isn't impressed by noise. A woman who doesn't confuse intensity with love. A woman who doesn't need to win every moment to feel secure. A woman who can sit in the same room with me, and the silence doesn't turn into a weapon, because the truth is, I've seen what people call love. I've seen the loud version, the addictive version, the dramatic version that keeps you guessing, keeps you apologizing, keeps you trying harder. And I don't want it. I don't want romance that feels like a negotiation. I don't want affection that comes with conditions. I don't want attention that disappears the second I disappoint someone. I want what grown women understand better than anyone. Consistency. I want steady. I want calm. I want respect that doesn't change based on mood. And if you're a woman in your 50 seconds or beyond, you know exactly why I'm saying that. Because you've already lived through enough, maybe. End quote. I have. It's end quote. I have. You've already spent too many nights replaying conversations in your head, wondering what you did wrong, when the truth was, you were dealing with someone who didn't know how to be safe. You've already been the one who held everything together, the one who kept the peace for everyone else, while nobody protected yours. So I'm writing you this letter with a kind of softness I don't usually allow myself. I'm going to speak to you like I'm not performing, like you're not a crowd, like you're one person sitting across from me, and the world can't interrupt. You're not hard to love. You were just asking the wrong people to love you in a way they never learned. You were loyal, you were patient, you were generous, and somewhere along the way someone treated those things like weaknesses. They taught you to be low maintenance. They taught you to accept crumbs. They taught you to stay quiet so you wouldn't be left. But I'm not writing you to tell you to toughen up. I'm writing you to tell you something nobody says loud enough. You don't need to be tougher. You need to be more protected, because there's a version of love that doesn't drain you, a version of love that doesn't make your chest tight, a version of love that doesn't turn every day into emotional weather, a version of love where you can wake up and your first thought isn't what's going to go wrong today. It's I'm okay, I'm safe, I'm not alone in this. And if you're thinking that sounds too good to be real, I understand. When you've been disappointed enough, peace starts to feel suspicious. Like maybe calm is just the quiet before the next storm. But listen, the reason peace feels unfamiliar isn't because it's fake. It's because you weren't given enough of it. So here's what I want to do for you in the next part of this letter. Not a speech, not pretty words. A tool, a way to protect yourself without turning cold. A test you can run not just on someone else, but on yourself. Because the moment you let someone close, You should be able to answer one question honestly. Do they bring me peace or do they steal it, if you're still here with me? So, here's the thing. Most people don't lose themselves all at once. They lose themselves one small compromise at a time. One, it's fine when it wasn't fine. One, I'll let it slide when it should have been a boundary. One late night apology for something they didn't even do just to keep the temperature in the room from dropping. And then one day, you wake up and you can't remember what your nervous system felt like before you started living on alert. That's why I'm giving you this not romance, not a promise, not a fantasy, a filter. Because peace isn't just a preference, it's a form of intelligence. And if you're a woman who has lived long enough to know the difference between a spark and a fire, then you already understand this in your bones. A love that costs you your peace is never a bargain. So quietly, honestly, let's run the peace test. Not the version where you convince yourself. Not the version where you blame yourself. The version where you listen to what your body and why. Our life are already telling you. The peace test. Question 1. After you talk to them, do you feel calm or do you feel confused? Not excited, not butterflies, calm or confused. Because confusion is not chemistry. Confusion is your mind trying to make sense of inconsistency. If every conversation feels like a puzzle, if you're replaying their words, decoding their tone, trying to figure out what they really meant, that isn't depth. That's emotional fog. A safe person makes things clearer. An unsafe person makes everything feel like a guessing game. And you know what the most exhausting part is? Confusion makes you work harder than love ever should. If you finish talking to someone and you feel like you need a nap, that's not romance. That's your nervous system filing a complaint. Question 2. Do they respect your no the first time, not the second time? Not after you explain your childhood. Not after you apologize for having a boundary the first time. Because a man who is safe doesn't treat your no like a door. He can push harder. He doesn't sulk. He doesn't punish. He doesn't disappear for 3 days to train you into compliance. He adjusts. And here's the part nobody says out loud. A person who gets angry at your boundary was benefiting from you not having one. So watch how someone reacts when you say, I'm not comfortable with that. I'm not ready. Please don't speak to me like that. I need time. This came, I quoted, if they make you feel guilty for having a spine, they don't want a partner, they want permission. Question 3. Do their words and actions match, especially in small things? Big speeches are cheap. Anyone can say, I miss you at midnight. Consistency is the real currency. The small agreements tell the truth. If they say they'll call, do they call? If they say they'll show up, do they show up? If they say they're serious, do they behave like it on a random Tuesday when nobody is watching? Because character isn't proven during the highlight reel. Character is proven in the ordinary. A safe man doesn't perform commitment. He lives it. And if you've been with someone who was brilliant with words but bankrupt with follow-through, you know exactly why I'm saying this. Question 4. Do you feel more like yourself around them or less? This is a quiet one, but it's lethal in its accuracy. Around the right person, you don't shrink. You don't second-guess your laugh. You don't edit your stories so you seem easier. You don't swallow your opinions to keep the peace. You are you. And you might be thinking, I've been alone a long time. I'm used to my own space. That's not a flaw. That's proof you learned how to survive without being held. But here's the difference. The right person doesn't invade your space. They honor it. They don't make your independence feel like rejection. They don't make your quiet feel like punishment. They understand a grown woman isn't playing games. She's protecting her peace. Question 5. Do they bring stability or do they bring emotional weather? You know what I mean by weather. One day they're warm, the next day they're cold. One day they're attentive, the next day they vanish. One day they talk about a future, the next day they act like you imagined it. That isn't romance, that is instability wearing a nice shirt, and women like you, women who've built lives, raised families, carried responsibilities, do not need emotional weather. You've already lived through storms, you deserve a love that feels like steady air. Question 6. When there's conflict, do they repair or do they punish? This one matters more than attraction, more than charm, more than anything. Because no relationship is perfect. But a safe relationship has repair. A safe man can say, I was wrong, I got defensive. I see how that hurt you. What do you need from me right now? An unsafe man punishes you for having feelings. He'll go silent, turn it around on you, make you beg for basic decency, make you feel dramatic for wanting respect. And if you've been there, if you've ever tried to explain your pain while someone watched you like you were an inconvenience, I need you to hear this clearly. Wanting repair is not neediness, it's maturity. Question 7. Do you feel safe in your body around them? This is where the truth hides. Your body knows before your heart admits it. Do you feel tight in the chest when their name pops up? Do you feel a sudden drop in your stomach? Do you feel the need to prepare before you speak? That's not intuition being dramatic. That's your system recognizing a pattern. A safe person feels like shoulders down, breath deeper, thoughts slower, sleep easier. An unsafe person feels like overthinking, walking on eggshells, proving yourself, explaining obvious things. You don't have to spiritualize. You don't have to intellectualize it. Just notice what happens inside you. Your body doesn't lie to impress anyone. Now, let's get painfully honest. If you run this test and you realize you've been choosing people who fail it, don't turn that into shame. Shame is a trap. Shame makes you settle because you think you deserve less. Instead, turn it into clarity, because clarity is power. And once you have clarity, you do something most people never learn to do. You stop negotiating your peace. You stop calling chaos love just because it feels familiar. You stop confusing longing with compatibility. Here's a simple rule. I wish someone put in your hands a long time ago. If you have to chase them to feel secure, they're not safe. If you have to shrink to keep them, they're not yours. If you have to suffer to earn tenderness, that's not love, it's conditioning. And I know the hard part isn't hearing this. The hard part is what comes after. Because when you choose peace, it can feel lonely at first. Not because peace is lonely, but because you're no longer addicted to emotional noise. Peace feels quiet, and quiet feels strange when you've lived too long in chaos. But quiet is where your life comes back to you. Quiet is where you remember what you like, what you need, what you won't tolerate anymore. Quiet is where you start becoming the kind of woman who doesn't beg to be chosen because she already chose herself. And if you're thinking, okay, so what do I do when I meet someone who feels calm? You don't rush. You don't hand them your whole heart because they said one beautiful thing. You watch. You let time prove them. Because time is the greatest lie detector. A man can act for a week. He can perform for a month, but he cannot fake character forever. So you let consistency build. Slow, boring to everyone else, but safe. And if you ever feel guilty for going slow, remember, a serious man won't be offended by your pace. He'll respect it because he doesn't want access to you. He wants trust. That's the peace test. Not to make you cynical, to make you free. Because the goal isn't to avoid love. The goal is to stop paying for love with your nervous system. And there's one more truth I need to say quietly before you try to apply this to someone else. Sometimes the test isn't about them. Sometimes it's about the part of you that keeps trying to win what should have been given. Sometimes your heart is still loyal to an old pattern. And if that's you, I'm not judging you. I'm telling you, you can outgrow what once felt like home. You can choose a different kind of love, a calmer kind, a love that doesn't demand you bleed to prove you care, a love that feels like being able to breathe in your own life again. And if you've never had that, it might feel unfamiliar, but unfamiliar doesn't mean wrong. Sometimes unfamiliar is exactly what healing looks like. There's something I need to admit, and it's not flattering. For a long time, I confused attention with closeness. Because when you live in a world where people are always watching, you start thinking that being seen is the same thing as being known. It isn't. Being seen can be a spotlight. Being known is a hand in the dark. In the spotlight, it lies. The spotlight makes people think they love you when they really just love what you represent, the story, the myth, the light. But the light is not where love lives. Love lives in the moments nobody posts. It lives in the quiet, unglamorous parts of life. When you're tired and your voice changes, when you're stressed and you're not charming, when your mind is somewhere else and you can't pretend you're fine, when the day has been long and a you can offer is honesty. That's where love either shows up or disappears. I've had people want me, but wanting isn't the same as caring. Some people want the feeling of being close to something powerful. Some people want the status of being chosen. Some people want to be the one who tamed a difficult man. And at first it can feel like devotion until you realize you're being loved like a concept, not like a person. And I'll tell you what that feels like. It feels like you can't relax. Because if they love the concept, then they're always measuring you against it. You're always supposed to be impressive, always supposed to be on, always supposed to be worth the story they tell themselves. And the moment you have a human day, a quiet day, a complicated day, they look disappointed. Not because you did anything wrong, but because you stopped feeding the fantasy. That's not love, that's consumption. And I'm saying this to you because I suspect you've lived your own version of it. Maybe not with fame, but with roles. The role of the strong woman, the dependable woman, the woman who holds everyone together, the woman who gives and gives until she can't feel her own hands. People can love you for your role too. They can adore what you do for them. They can praise your patience, your loyalty, your generosity. And then the day you say, I'm tired, or I need you now, or I can't keep doing this alone, they retreat. That's how you know it wasn't love. It was convenience. So here's what I learned slowly, painfully, honestly. A relationship doesn't fail because there isn't enough love. It fails because there isn't enough respect. Respect is the foundation people forget because it's not romantic, but it's everything. Respect is how they speak to you when they're frustrated, whether they value your time, whether they keep their word, whether they listen without turning everything into a debate, whether your feelings are treated like information or like an inconvenience. A man can say I love you and still disrespect you daily. And a man can be quiet with his words and still honor you with his life. That's why I'm careful now. I don't trust intensity anymore. Intensity can be chemistry or it can be instability. I don't trust charm the way I used to. Charm can be warmth or it can be strategy. I trust the things that aren't exciting. Steadiness, accountability, calm repair, consistent kindness, a nervous system that doesn't spike when their name appears on your screen. Because when a person is safe, your life gets quieter in a good way, not emptier. Quieter and quiet is where real love survives. There's another thing I want to tell you, and I want to say it carefully. If you're a woman with a full life, grown children, responsibilities, history, wisdom, you don't need a man who adds spark. You need a man who adds support. You don't need more adrenaline. You've had enough. You need a partnership that makes daily life easier, not harder. You need someone who doesn't compete with your peace, someone who doesn't treat your independence like a threat. Because a mature woman doesn't want to be managed, she wants to be met. And meeting you means he doesn't try to shrink you. He doesn't say you're too much when you're simply being honest. He doesn't say you're overreacting when you're reacting to disrespect. He doesn't label your boundaries as drama. He understands boundaries are not drama. Boundaries are the price of admission to your life. And if he can't pay it, he doesn't get inside. That's not cold. That's wise. This is where I need to be honest about myself too. There were times I didn't know how to be emotionally safe. Not because I wanted to hurt anyone, because I learned how to solve problems, not how to sit with feelings. I learned how to build, not how to soften. And when you're wired that way, you can accidentally make a woman feel alone, even while you're standing right next to her. You can think providing is love. You can think fixing is love. You can think I'm here is enough even when you're not truly present.